Welcome back to Past Plays. You ready to have some long-held beliefs challenged? Because today we're diving into some of those facts you probably learned in school that, well, aren't actually true anymore.
I am definitely ready.
Awesome. Our source material for this deep dive is a Reader's Digest article called 25 Facts You Learned in School That Are No Longer True. And let me tell you, it's packed with surprises.
Oh, I bet.
Okay, let's start with a big one. Dinosaurs.
Okay.
You probably learned they went extinct millions of years ago, right? But what if I told you they're still alive today?
Wait, what? I mean, I know we have fossils and all, but...
Think feathers.
Okay.
Birds are actually direct descendants of dinosaurs.
Oh, wow.
They're part of a group called theropods, which were bipedal dinosaurs, many of whom sported feathers, think velociraptors, but with plumage.
So when I see a robin in my backyard, I'm basically looking at a tiny dinosaur relative.
Exactly. And forget those dull gray images you might have in your head. Fossil evidence shows that many dinosaurs had colorful feathers, thanks to microscopic structures called melanosomes that preserve pigment. Imagine a T-Rex with bright orange and blue feathers.
That completely changes my mental picture of the prehistoric world.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of dinosaurs, remember the Brontosaurus?
Yeah.
It was kind of removed from the Dinosaur Family album for a while, considered just a mislabeled Apatosaurus.
I vaguely remember that controversy.
Well, science has a way of correcting itself. Recent research has re-examined those old fossils and determined that there are enough differences to justify giving Brontosaurus back its own genus.
Wow.
So it's officially back on the dino roster.
It's good to know that even in paleontology, there's room for second chances.
Absolutely. Now let's shift gears to some historical misconceptions.
Okay.
Ever heard of George Washington's famous wooden teeth?
Oh, yeah. That's classic Americana. But I have a feeling you're about to tell me they weren't actually made of wood.
You got it. While Washington did struggle with dental problems his whole life, his dentures were far more complex.
Okay.
And a bit more disturbing than just wood. They were crafted from ivory gold and even lead.
Lead. Wow, that doesn't sound very healthy.
You're telling me.
Yeah.
And get this, some of the teeth in those dentures were actually human teeth. He reportedly purchased teeth from enslaved people.
Wow.
A grim reminder of the realities of that era.
That's a pretty dark side to a seemingly simple historical anecdote.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how many other facts we accept without digging a little deeper.
Exactly. It highlights the importance of looking beyond the surface,
Yeah.
examining the context behind the stories we've been told.
Speaking of stories,
Okay.
let's talk about Salem, Massachusetts and the witch trials. We often picture women being burned at the stake, but that's not actually how it happened in the American colonies, is it?
You're right. While burning at the stake was practiced in Europe, in Salem, accused witches were hanged. It's interesting how these misconceptions take hold and become part of our collective memory.
I think it often comes down to oversimplification and the power of imagery. Burning at the stake is a much more dramatic visual than hanging.
Right.
So perhaps that's why it's stuck in our minds, even if it's not accurate.
That's a good point. It reminds us to be critical of the information we consume and to always seek out multiple sources.
Well said. So what other outdated facts are we going to debunk today?
How about we shake things up a bit and move on to some science updates?
Oh, okay.
You know how we learned about the 3 states of matter: solid, liquid, gas?
Yes.
Turns out there's a 4th state that's actually incredibly common in the universe. Plasma.
Plasma. I know that word, but I can't quite place it.
Think of it as a superheated gas where the electrons have been stripped away from the atoms.
Okay.
Stars, for example, are basically giant balls of plasma.
So the sun is a massive swirling mass of plasma.
That's incredible. And now let's go to the opposite end of the temperature spectrum. Okay. Have you ever heard of a Bose-Einstein condensate?
Can't say I have.
Well, it's basically what happens when you cool atoms down to almost absolute zero, the lowest possible temperature. They practically stop moving and start behaving like a single entity, almost as if they've lost their individual identities.
That sounds like something straight out of science fiction. It's fascinating how much is happening at the atomic level that we're completely unaware of in our everyday lives.
It really is.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how much we still have to learn about the fundamental building blocks of the universe.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm ready for another mind-blowing fact. Hit me with it.
Let's talk about the solar system.
Okay.
Remember the whole Pluto demotion drama?
Yeah, I felt a little bad for Pluto. It was like they got kicked out of the planet club.
Well, Pluto wasn't alone. It got reclassified as a dwarf planet. along with other celestial bodies like Ceres.
Right.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Scientists believe there might be another large planet out there way beyond Pluto that they're calling Planet X.
A whole new planet. That's incredible.
Pretty amazing, right? The possibility of another planet lurking in the outer reaches of our solar system is just one example of how much we still have to discover.
Speaking of discoveries, before we move on, I want to take a quick detour to talk about a discovery of a different kind.
Okay.
One that can help you break free from limitations in your business.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of no-face marketing?
Actually, I have. It's about building a successful online business without needing to put yourself front and center right.
Yeah.
No awkward videos, no constant social media hustle. You let the power of systems and automation do the heavy lifting.
Exactly. It's perfect for entrepreneurs who are ready to make a real impact without the pressure of being a public figure.
If that sounds intriguing to you, you can learn more at https://links2me.com, now face marketing.
Great.
It's definitely worth exploring if you're ready to take your business to the next level.
Absolutely. Now, where were we? Ah, yes, debunking outdated facts.
Right.
What else is on the list?
Let's talk about a myth that's often repeated. That toilets flush in the opposite direction in the southern hemisphere
Okay.
because of the Coriolis effect.
Ah, the infamous swirling toilet bowl.
Yes.
It's a fun idea, but not actually true.
Right.
While the Coriolis effect does influence large-scale weather patterns like hurricanes,
Right.
it's way too weak to affect the direction water spins down your toilet drain. That's more determined by the toilet's design.
So you don't have to worry about encountering a backwards flushing toilet when you travel south of the equator.
Exactly. It's just another example of how a catchy idea can spread, even if it's not grounded in reality.
Speaking of misconceptions, let's revisit our old friends, the Neanderthals.
Okay.
For a long time, they were depicted as brutish, unintelligent cavemen.
Right.
But recent discoveries are painting a much more complex picture.
Definitely. We now know that Neanderthals were far more sophisticated than we once thought. They created cave art, used tools, and there's even evidence to suggest they might have had their own forms of rituals and symbolic thought.
Wow.
They weren't just surviving, they were thriving and expressing themselves in complex ways.
So why did they disappear while Homo sapiens flourished?
There are a few theories, and it's likely a combination of factors.
Okay.
One leading idea is that they were simply outnumbered by the waves of Homo sapiens migrating out of Africa.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily survival of the fittest, but perhaps more about population dynamics and resource competition.
It's a good reminder that the story of human evolution is complex and full of nuances.
Absolutely. And it's a great place to wrap up part 1 of our deep dive. But don't go anywhere just yet. We've got a lot more myth-busting to do when we come back.
Welcome back to Past Plays. I'm ready to dive back into those outdated facts we've been exploring.
Me too. Let's pick up where we left off with the human body.
Okay.
Remember those tongue maps from elementary school that showed specific zones for sweet, salty, sour, and bitter tastes? Oh yeah, I used to spend way too much time trying to map out those zones on my own tongue.
Well, guess what? Those taste maps are a complete myth. Taste receptors are actually distributed all over the tongue,
Really?
not confined to specific areas.
So you're telling me I can enjoy a chocolate bar equally on any part of my tongue?
That's right. You don't have to strategically place those chocolate squares for maximum taste bud stimulation.
Wow.
It's all good no matter where it lands. Speaking of enjoying things,
Okay.
let's tackle a childhood worry that probably plagued us all: what happens to swallowed gum.
Oh, the infamous 7-year stomach myth. I used to picture a giant wad of gum taking up permanent residence in my digestive system.
We've all been there, but rest assured, it's just a myth. Gum is mostly indigestible,
Right.
but it doesn't stick around for years. It passes through your system relatively quickly, just like any other indigestible fiber.
That's a relief. Okay, what other myths are we busting today?
How about this one? Does hair and fingernails really continue to grow after death?
That's a spooky thought, but I have a feeling the answer is no.
You're right. The appearance of growth is actually due to skin dehydration and retraction, which exposes more of the nail and hair shaft.
So it's just an illusion created by the body's natural changes after death.
Exactly. It's not a sign of continued life, just a trick of biology.
Okay.
Speaking of historical figures who need a bit of a fact check,
Yeah.
let's revisit Christopher Columbus.
Okay.
He's often credited as the discoverer of America, but we know that's not the whole story.
Yeah, that narrative definitely needs some revising.
Right.
Native Americans had already been living here for thousands of years before Columbus arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And to add to the historical inaccuracies, he also didn't prove that the Earth was round.
Yeah.
That was already established knowledge among educated Europeans at the time.
So Columbus's story needs a serious update in those history textbooks.
I think so too. And while we're on the subject of outdated information,
Yeah.
let's tackle that persistent myth about humans only using 10% of their brains.
That one always seemed a little ridiculous to me. Like we're carrying around all this extra brain power for no reason.
Right. Brain scans show activity throughout the brain even when we're resting.
Wow.
We use our entire brain, just not all at the same time for every single task.
So no untapped psychic potential hiding in those unused brain cells.
Afraid not. It's a nice thought, but the reality is much more complex and fascinating.
Okay, this next one is for all the color enthusiasts out there.
Okay.
Remember ROYGBV, the acronym for the colors of the rainbow.
Yes.
Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet.
Of course. A classic mnemonic.
Well, guess what? Indigo is out. Modern interpretations of the rainbow often omit indigo,
Oh.
leaving us with just 6 main colors.
Interesting. I wonder why indigo was included in the first place then.
It's thought that Isaac Newton, who first defined the color spectrum,
Okay.
had a strong interest in symbolism and believed that 7 colors aligned better with his philosophical views.
Mm-hmm.
But science has moved on, and the modern rainbow is a bit more streamlined.
It's a good reminder that even scientific facts can be influenced by cultural or personal biases. Speaking of historical figures who are sometimes given more credit than they deserve,
Right.
did Thomas Edison really single-handedly invent the light bulb?
Not quite. While Edison played a key role in developing a practical and commercially viable light bulb,
Okay.
the concept of electric lighting had been around for decades before him.
Oh.
Other inventors had created earlier prototypes, but Edison's design was more efficient and marketable.
So it was more about innovation and entrepreneurship than pure invention in Edison's case.
Exactly. He saw the potential of electric lighting and figured out how to make it work on a large scale,
Yeah.
but he wasn't working in a vacuum.
It's a good lesson that many groundbreaking innovations are built upon the work of those who came before.
Now let's tackle a grammar rule that's caused countless spelling headaches. I before E except after C.
Yes, a rule that's notoriously riddled with exceptions.
Right.
I feel like it's more often wrong than right.
Words like weird, glacier, and even science defy the rule completely.
It's a prime example of how some rules are made to be broken, or at least taken with a grain of salt.
Speaking of things that are larger than life,
Yeah.
is the Great Wall of China really the only human-made structure visible from space?
That's a persistent myth, but it's not true.
Right.
While the Great Wall is long, it's relatively narrow and blends in with the surrounding landscape.
Uh-huh.
Astronauts have reported seeing other human-made structures from space, like cities, highways, and even airports.
So the Great Wall isn't as unique as we were led to believe.
Not from an orbital perspective.
Okay, one last myth to debunk before we wrap up part 2. It's impossible to fold a piece of paper in half more than 7 times.
I've heard that one, but it seems physically impossible.
It's a classic thought experiment, and
Mhm.
for a long time people believed it was true.
Right.
But with a large enough sheet of paper and a lot of determination, you can fold it more than 7 times.
Mm.
In fact, the Mythbusters even managed to fold a football field-sized piece of paper in half 11 times.
Wow. So there you have it, proof that limitations are sometimes just illusions waiting to be shattered.
And a reminder that our understanding of the world is constantly evolving. Speaking of shattering limitations,
Okay.
let's revisit no-face marketing. If you're tired of feeling limited by the demands of traditional online marketing,
Mm-hmm.
no-face marketing might just be the solution you've been looking for.
Exactly. It's all about leveraging systems and automation to build a thriving business without having to be the constant center of attention.
If that sounds like something you'd like to learn more about,
Right.
be sure to visit https://links2me.com/Soderi no-face marketing.
Okay.
You'll find a wealth of information there to help you get started.
So are you ready to tackle the final set of myths and misconceptions? I'm excited to see what else is on the list.
Let's do it. Welcome back to Past Plays. We're wrapping up our deep dive into outdated facts with a few more mind-blowing revelations.
It's amazing how much there is to unlearn and relearn, isn't it? It's like a constant mental upgrade.
It really is. So what do you say we jump right back into those long-held beliefs
Okay.
that are so ingrained in our culture
Yeah.
that we rarely question them?
Let's do it. I'm always up for challenging those common sense notions that turn out to be complete nonsense.
Exactly. For example, how many times have we heard that opposites attract? It's a popular saying, but when you really examine it,
Right.
it doesn't hold up in many areas of life.
You're right. Think about relationships. Often people are drawn to others who share similar values, interests, and outlooks on life.
It's more about compatibility and shared understanding than opposing forces.
And even in the realm of physics, opposites often repel,
Right.
like magnets with the same poles facing each other.
It's a reminder that those catchy sayings we often take for granted might not always reflect reality.
So it's important to be critical thinkers and question even those deeply held beliefs.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And while we're on the topic of questioning things, let's talk about those facts that we accept simply because they've been repeated so often.
right.
Like those urban legends that somehow morph into accepted truths.
Exactly. For example, have you ever heard that shaving makes hair grow back thicker?
Oh, yeah. I remember hearing that one. I used to avoid shaving my legs because I didn't want to end up with a forest of thick, dark hair.
It's a widespread belief, but it's completely unfounded. Shaving simply cuts at the hair at the surface.
Right.
It doesn't affect the thickness or growth rate.
So I can shave without fear of turning into a werewolf.
Exactly. Our bodies are fascinating, but they don't always behave the way we imagine.
It seems like the more we learn, the more we realize how much we still don't know.
And that's the beauty of the journey of discovery. It's about embracing curiosity, questioning assumptions, and being open to new perspectives.
Speaking of new perspectives, this deep dive has definitely given us a fresh look at some of those facts we thought we knew.
It's been a great reminder that knowledge is constantly evolving, and we should always be open to updating our understanding of the world.
Absolutely. Just because you learn something in school doesn't mean it's still true today.
Yeah.
Stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to challenge those long-held beliefs.
And if you're feeling inspired to break free from limitations in your business, don't forget to check out No Face Marketing at https://linktome.com/nofacemarketing.
Right.
It's a game changer for entrepreneurs who want to build a successful online business without the pressure of being in the spotlight.
Thanks for joining us on Past Plays for this fascinating exploration of outdated facts.
Yes.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep playing.